Sabah everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today, OnePlus finally announced the OnePlus 9 series of devices, the OnePlus 9, the OnePlus 9 Pro, as well as the OnePlus Watch. And that was something that I think we all thought was going to come out in 2020, but apparently 2021 is the year of the OnePlus Watch. And of course, what we see with the Hasselblad kind of collaboration on both the OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 9 Pro. In this video, we're going to cover specifically the OnePlus 9 Pro and all the features, or at least the top 5 features that I feel like should really be highlighted about the brand new device from OnePlus. This is TK and this is the OnePlus 9 Pro 5G. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so they are always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So we're going to start off by looking at the reviewer's guide box. I definitely want to share this with you real quick. As far as an unboxing, we get obviously both devices were included in there. We have the 9 and the 9 Pro. And what we also get in the box essentially is the wireless charger, the brand new wireless charger that was included. They include the brick, the power brick to be able to charge them with 65-watt charging with the USB-C to USB-C cable, and of course the stickers as we typically see from OnePlus. Overall, the entire package looks absolutely fantastic, and I'm very, very happy that I get a chance to spend some time with both of them. And in this video, as we said in the beginning, we're going to focus on the 9 Pro. So on the left here, I have the OnePlus 8 Pro from 2020, and on the right, I have the OnePlus 9 Pro, just announced, and of course in this beautiful, beautiful color here that we have. Now, the first thing I'll probably say is the aesthetic differences here is that the cameras are no longer present in the center. They're now obviously you see here on the top left. We also have a quad camera setup in implementation, which is very similar. So we have 3 in here with an additional on the top, and here they're all within the same system. Although the camera setup or the camera sensors are a little bit different. We no longer are running a dual 48 megapixel sensor. Now we're going 48 and 50 for the ultra wide custom sensors that are built in there. And of course we have the telephoto and of course the depth sensor. Dual tone LED flash, microphone. We still have wireless charging, which is definitely very nice, although we went from 30-watt wireless charging from OnePlus. That was with the provided charger that at the time were giving away when you first pre-ordered it. Now we're up to 50-watt of wireless charging that's capable of charging this device from 0 to 100% in roughly about 42 to 47 minutes, depending on the circumstances, if the device is on or off. But the wire charging has also increased tremendously from 30 watts here to 65 watts. So what we saw with the OnePlus 8T is now finally here. And of course, the actual design is slightly different. We no longer have that nice little smoky effect here. We have more of a gradient color. You'll notice it's more reflective mirror on the back. And of course, as you get higher, it gets more into a silver color. Now there's 3 different colors that are going to be available. There is the morning mist, there's the stellar black, and of course there's the pure green. So the main thing that you want to keep in mind is that depending on the color that you get, you're going to obviously enjoy it very much. The camera sensor is going to be the exact same thing. As I mentioned, the experience that you're getting here is a 48 megapixel primary shooter that's going to be an IMX789, and of course a 50 megapixel IMX766, the ultra wide, and 8 megapixel, basically up to 3.3x optical 8 megapixel sensor, and the last one is just a 2 megapixel depth sensor. That's the best way. Now on the front, we have a 16 megapixel camera that's providing us a 1080p experience with 60 frames per second maximum refresh rate. And then keep in mind, 4500 milliampere battery that's present on here. On the right side, we have the toggle switch, as we've seen it, typical and iconic to OnePlus, a power button. On the top, we have nothing other than just a microphone. And of course, on the bottom, we have a bottom firing speaker that's married with the top one to provide us stereo speakers supported with Dolby Atmos, a dual SIM card for the unlocked model in the US, as well as the fact that we have a USB-C charging here, again, 65 watts wired, and of course, all the way up to 50 watts wireless with the new OnePlus charger that was just announced. Now, the one thing I would probably say is as far as the design, we have a couple of aesthetical changes. We no longer have that slot that's present in the middle that's open for venting. It's actually present at the bottom. So the vent is at the bottom. There's still a kickstand with an LED light at the bottom indicating that we are charging. The OnePlus logo now is present on the front as opposed to having it on the back, as you can kind of see it right there. And we still have the fans, but they're not present on the back now. They're all the way on the bottom. So a few differences, of course, on top of the fact that now it is powered by USB-C, detachable cable, as opposed to a built-in cable that you couldn't remove. Now, this will still work with the new OnePlus 9 Pro. It's 30 watts. That's going to be the maximum. If you want to go all the way up to 50, you do need to pick up the new charger, which is very nice. Now, switching it over on the front, some of the new implementations that we have in here is a 6.7-inch QHD, and this is going to be basically running at 120 hertz, the same way we've seen it here with the OnePlus 8 Pro from last year. The main difference, of course, is that now it's capable of going all the way up to 1300 nits. Also, the ability of going with a variable refresh rate all the way down to 1 hertz, depending on what you're watching, if it's a constant image, going all the way up to 120. And that gives us the ability of getting a much better battery life on this, especially if we're running it in QHD with 120 hertz. It is also certified to be P3 and 10-bit color display, so definitely much better representation for images and videos on this display, which is something that is also very, very nice. But again, keep in mind, outdoor visibility is going to be absolutely fantastic. Now, when we're talking about the specifications, keep in mind this is going to be running the latest and greatest, the 888 processor with 5G supported in the US. We have two configurations, an 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM, LPDDR5, and of course, the internal storage is going to be either 128 or 256 gigs of internal storage running with UFS 3.1. Now, keep in mind that's going to be literally just the fastest possible specs that you can get on paper, and that's typical to OnePlus. The 8 Pro or the 9 Pro are obviously intended to be the best of what they have to offer for whichever year they present it. Now, we are running Oxygen OS 11 on top of Android 11, and of course, this is the OnePlus 9 Pro unlocked model. We have, again, 12 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of internal storage for this model. Again, the 48 to 5088 and the 2 megapixel camera for the quad camera setup on the back and with 16 on the front. The 120 Hz Fluid AMOLED 6.7-inch display as we've seen in the past. And again, this is running the latest security patch update. A lot of the things that we saw in the leaks obviously did end up being true. It is basically that the Hasselblad configuration or the collaboration with Hasselblad is definitely very much here. And it is actually present on both the 9 and the 9 Pro. The main difference between the two actually is a lot less than what we've seen in the past. Make sure to check out that video that I'm going to post as well about the OnePlus 9, as I feel like between last year and this year, the OnePlus 9 got a lot more updates than what we typically get from a year-to-year bump. Definitely a very good consideration from OnePlus in this year. Now, you probably already noticed that I have the always on display, and that's part of Oxygen OS 11. But you also probably noticed that I have Goku sitting in here. So if I double tap here, it unlocks it there. Fingerprint sensor is still present there. We have all the ability of doing these. And of course, last but not least, the ability of customizing these little shortcuts that we've typically had within OnePlus devices. So everything is very nice. Gesture support, very, very good, very, very fast. Again, 12 gigs of RAM, 256 in the model that I have, but you're able to also pick up one that again has the 8 gigs of RAM and of course 128 gigs of internal storage. Now that we've talked about the design and the display, let's go ahead and talk about the cameras, because I feel like a lot of us want to know, how is this collaboration with Hasselblad going to affect the OnePlus experience? Now, the influence from Hasselblad goes into a couple of things. There is an influence also into the color tuning that was done here with the images that will come out of these devices, as well as the ability of having a specific mode called the Hasselblad Pro mode. So if you swipe up, you'll see it right there. It's Pro mode, but it also has that Hasselblad logo. And it gives us the ability of using a couple of things here. First and foremost, we'll notice that we have the ability of jumping in between JPEG and RAW, and as well as basically RAW on its own. Now, you're able to basically shoot in all of these. Just keep in mind, RAW formats are in DNG files, and they're generally a lot bigger, and editing them requires some additional software that is needed on a PC. But you're able to turn them on. You have a histogram availability here as well, and also you have the ability of using a couple of different presets that are built in here, C1 and C2 when you're shooting in RAW. The ability of shooting, basically customizing the ISO, the white balance, the shutter speed, obviously the focus level, all of that stuff is configured very nicely. But also the ability of actually setting the focus and the exposure to different points. You'll notice when I tapped on here, I have the ability of moving the circle. This is going to be the focal point configuration, and that's going to be the exposure to help us actually get better images whenever we're outdoors. And what we'll probably say is the best experience as I'm sharing with you guys this image. I went ahead and shot some photos in the backyard, of course, using RAW, and of course wanted to edit them, and I used Photoshop to edit the image, and you're able to get so much more color when you actually do that. So if you ever want to try to go into that level and using that Pro mode, definitely use the Hasselblad Pro mode that's built in here. And of course, this is accompanied by Nightscape, portrait mode, that's typical to what we've seen. Now here we're able to use the wide angle lens, the standard mode, as well as video cropped in. So in video, it only goes into 2 times because of the stabilization that it tries to do. But if you jump into photo, you're able to jump into 3.3, and that's the optical zoom that we have with the telephoto option. That's something to keep in mind when you're using the cameras. Now, one of the things that I definitely appreciate here is the ability of being able to shoot all the way up to 4K at 120 frames per second with the OnePlus 9 Pro. 8K is limited to 30 frames per second, and the 120 frames per second is only available on the 9 Pro. The 9 can go up to 4K 60 as well as 8K, but again, if you're going to use 4K 120, this is going to be the configuration you want to use it, and we'll definitely jump into that. We have slow motion, panorama mode, and of course time lapse. But let's not waste any time. Let's jump into a quick sample of the front facing and the back facing camera on the brand new OnePlus 9 Pro. So we're going to start off with the front facing camera here on the OnePlus 9 Pro. The first thing I'll say is that we have 1080p 60 frames per second. So that's something that's a little bit nicer here. But again, 1080p 60 will be the maximum that we have here using the OnePlus 9 Pro. Switching it over to the main sensor in the back. Now the main difference obviously is the ability of shooting 4K 120 frames per second on the 9 Pro that we don't have on the 9. The other thing is we can still shoot 4K 60 frames per second on the standard lens as well as the wide angle lens. We also have the ability of going all the way up to 8K, but that 4K 120 becomes very, very functional, as you could see it right there. If you're trying to capture video or anything that requires to be basically in the highest, best quality, but you also want to have the flexibility of being able to slow it down, 4K 120 is going to be the best way to do it. It's not 8K because I feel like 8K is still not super functional, but 4K 120 is very, very nice. And again, you can shoot with it normally the way you have it here. It is capped though to the primary sensor, so we only can do 120 on the primary sensor, but 4K 60 on the primary and the wide angle lens. Now using the stabilization, you'll get a couple of options. You have the ability of recording at 1080p or 4K 30 frames per second. Now it is limited to the primary sensor, so keep that in mind, but definitely very nice to have stabilized 4K footage on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Now before we jump into the gaming experience, which I feel like is my number 4 feature that we definitely want to focus on, the audio experience here, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have Dolby Atmos configuration, stereo speakers, so top and bottom earpiece married in there, and of course the ability of using the new options within Android 11, so the ability of selecting where my audio is going to be playing straight from the actual interface, as well as the ability of turning on captions and turning off captions and configuring the different levels. So all of that is normal. We've seen that in the past. I'm going to go ahead and jump all the way up to the point where the sound actually has that nice little drop, and we'll of course see and listen to the new speakers on the OnePlus 9 Pro.
Jack it up.
Definitely sounds very good, very rich. The bass levels are very good. And of course, you can still tune it to the personal preference. Essentially, if you're watching movies, music, or if you're just using the normal automatic profile directly within the actual system. Now, jumping into gaming, of course, we want to talk about the new gaming app or the new games section. Now, there is a section right away when you jump in. It's called My Games. You can jump in there, swipe. So instant games, and of course, stay tuned, fixing updates. So you have all your applications listed, and you can list all the apps. If they're not showing in there, you can go in there and say add, or you can change the view to whichever format that you like to keep it. I personally like this one. It looks really nice. You can configure it by going in here. So basically going either you want to always start it up with. Now, I'm noticing that there's still some areas where it's called Fanatic, but they've changed the name of it. It's now called Pro Gaming, and we'll see that in a little bit. Moments, of course, we can remove it, and of course, or create a shortcut for it. And then you notice it takes us straight into the actual system, and of course, swiping from the top here gets us access to the new gaming shortcuts option. I can see the temperature of the device, obviously the time, and of course, the percentage of the battery. Ability of turning on WhatsApp, Instagram is built in here. Fanatic mode is also still showing there, but if I swipe down from the top, we'll notice now it's called Pro, or Gaming mode is in there. Tap your view, and it's called Pro Gaming mode. And I think it's just the remnants of the old system. But the collaboration between Fanatic and OnePlus is no longer there, so that's going to be one of the new options. And of course, the remove accidental touches in there. Screen recording, capable of recording all the way up to QHD here and 1080p on the OnePlus 9. And of course, rewind recording. That's if you want to be able to rewind and capture certain moments. As far as the resolution or the maximum resolution here within Pubg, just kind of reference, so Ultra HD as well as colorful and ultra on the refresh rate, and that's primarily because of this version. And if you obviously go down to the OnePlus 9, it's going to be basically HDR with ultra and of course colorful, as that one does not have a QHD resolution display. But let's not talk anymore. Let me show you a quick sample of some gaming on both the OnePlus 9 and the 9 Pro.
Have captured the hard point. Friendly XS-1 Goliath is landing. Headshot! We're winning! Keep it!
So we've already talked about other features. Lastly, I want to talk to you guys about the battery. And of course, since we jumped over to 65 watts, we need to talk about the fact that is how does this managed within the system? We do have optimizing charging here to be able to actually optimize the charging and reduce the amount of load on the battery so that we don't reduce basically the lifespan of the battery by just keep charging it all the time. We have reverse wireless charging as well as bedtime mode. That's something that we've seen in the past. But the main benefit here is the wired charging is rated to run with the charger that's included in the box to charge it at 65 watts, the two separate batteries that we have in here. And of course, the wireless charging gives us the ability of using it about 42, 47 minutes is the way my experience has been. But make sure you turn on optimized charging, and that way essentially it learns the pattern that you're using your device, and of course helps charge the device and not necessarily overdo it with the system. But the benefit of this is that even if you want to be able to play games for a long amount of time, you can charge your device very, very quickly and get it back up to running speed without any problems, specifically with the wired charging, because that's going to be your best experience here. And then the last little Easter egg you probably have not known yet is in the past we've seen OnePlus use proprietary chargers. They've always done this where their chargers, when they're able to charge faster charging, like 30 watts or whatever, we typically see them charge only to that. And if you plug in a device that is not a OnePlus device, it typically charges at a very slow speed. The new OnePlus 9 charger that's included in the box can actually also charge up to 45 watt with power delivery, which means this makes this charger actually even more functional to use with other devices that use power delivery or any other technologies to charge. So it charges very, very fast, 65 watts here with the OnePlus 9 Pro, as well as the OnePlus 9. Both of them are supported there. But if you want to charge something else that it needs a 45 watt power delivery, the charging brick here is definitely going to help. One of the main things I'll probably say is that the camera performance on the OnePlus 9 Pro is definitely a lot better than what we've seen in the past. The images that come out of here look very nice, very vibrant. The HDR processing is actually done very nicely. Now, you're still able to get some of those highly saturated images if you want, depending on how you're using it. But my recommendation is just jump into the Pro mode and actually even shoot in RAW. You're able to get all the way up to 12-bit RAW there to be able to edit it and get all those nice little colors. And I would tend to basically say that the best way to do it is just to undershoot, or basically shoot underexpose ever so slightly, and of course kick it into the PC and then edit it. The overall experience right now is it's a very nice upgrade to what we've seen last year. We not only have faster charging, we have faster wireless charging. We also have that new addition of the Hasselblad configuration as well as the image tuning. And of course the new 50 megapixel basically ultra wide lens that's present here. So it's a nice upgrade from what we've seen in the past. But that 4K 120 frames per second is absolutely very nice. So the overall experience here when it comes to cameras, gaming, sound, overall, everything is still screaming the fastest possible capabilities that OnePlus has to offer in 2021. As far as pricing and availability, there's going to be different configurations, but I'll say this much. It starts at about $729 for the OnePlus 9 base model, and all the way up to $1,069 for the OnePlus 9 Pro with the higher model. That's the 12 to 56 gigs of internal storage. So you have different options to be able to pick from as far as getting the right one that fits you. And as I mentioned, 3 different colors available for those configurations. Now, the OnePlus Watch was announced at the same time. There's going to be a little bit more time before I'm able to get my hands on it. I would probably say this. The overall experience that we're getting here is finally OnePlus getting into the mobile, or at least the accessory side, outside of just being true wireless headphones. Last year, we saw that there was a lot of rumors about it. We finally have it. Once I have my hands on it, I'll definitely be able to share a little bit more about that. But it's going to start being available on the 14th of April for $159 directly from OnePlus's website. The OnePlus 9 and 9 Pro are also going to be available from different carriers, so please make sure to check out one of your carriers to see if they're going to be available for you. But as far as the pricing that I shared with you guys, that's going to be straight from OnePlus's website. And of course, there'll be a link in the description below if you'd like to be able to save a little bit of money on your order with them. But at the end of the day, I'm really excited to be able to see what we have here. I've already transferred all of my content from my old device directly into the OnePlus 9 Pro, as this is going to be my daily driver moving on forward. Very excited to see what you guys have to say about it. Like and subscribe as usual. And of course, I'll see you guys in the next one.